Absolutely.
Let's have a look at their deck, shall we?
Absolutely. So first off, we have Tom de Wael on blue-white mill.
Was it hidden?
No.
Me. So Tom de Wael on blue-white mill. We see a lot of the classical elements, and we'll see him trying to win off Psychic Corrosion more than anything else.
Yes, Psychic Corrosion backed up by a couple of Ashiok Dream Renders or Mind Render. And next to the mill package of just Psychic Corrosion, Ashiok, and some strong draw effects, Tom is playing a lot of counterspells and removal. Just the traditional blue-white control package, very much geared towards beating aggro and slight mid-range decks. So it's a very interesting deck for sure, one that he talked about in one of his articles as well. That he's very done building, which I should think. But his opponent, Pascal, made very, very interesting deck. So if Niels will pull up the deck list for that, 5-color ramp. So absolutely, wow! This deck list is a lot to unpack. So there's obviously the ramp package, Growth Spiral, Rejuvenator, Circuitous Route to get the mana flowing, backed up by Adventurous Impulse to get more creatures and lands. Very interesting card there. Definitely necessary to pick up your lands, pick up your creatures that you need to ramp further. And then supported by, obviously, the Risen Reef, a very strong card, ramps you very well, or draws a card if it's on a land. So if that sticks around and you get to play some other elementals, definitely a very impactful card. And then to try and bring the beats, he has the on-curve Threat of Elite Guard Mage, which will gain him some more life against the aggro matchup, which could prove difficult for this deck to beat, and draws another card. So definitely a strong body there. And then on 5 we have the Tatyovas, which will run a bunch of cards with all his ramp effects, as Tatyova has been doing in Gentry since Dominaria, with a very interesting rare package of Field of the Dead, a land card that has taken regular standard by storm and is now making its prime appearance in Gentry as well. Basically, so long as you have 7 lands, all of which with different names, any land that enters battlefield will make a 2/2 black zombie appear. So that card is the main engine of inevitability in this deck. A lot of his ramp cards will be able to put that into play or fetch it. Golos will definitely do that, and as you see what Niels just pulled up, the Scapeshift will allow, Scapeshift and Golos both allow you to get a land from your deck, Scapeshift more than one of course, which will allow you to get that Field of the Dead. Now very, very interesting deck for sure, but this matchup, Mill versus this deck, makes it even more interesting, because both of these decks really do try to defend themselves against aggro. Blue-White Control has a lot of things that can deal with attacking creatures as long as they're small enough or on curve with the Exile Enchantment, Ixalan's Binding. But what it doesn't deal with in any way, shape or form is Field of the Dead value. That will just get you out of there. So at first it was difficult for me to analyze who would win this matchup. But after some interesting test games that I played with both the decks, I realized that the Ram deck has a lot of time to get ahead on mana, dump out the big threats and take over the game, or win off Field of the Dead. Mill has some answers, not enough to beat that value. But Mill gets to put on a really fast clock with Psychic Corrosion, considering that Ramp thins out its deck a lot. So what we'll see here, as far as I believe, Gideon Reproaches will hit primarily the Guard Mage, and that's about it for Tom's side. And Tom's best chance of winning, I believe, is to mill that Field of the Dead.
Yeah. Well, let's see how it evolves from here out, how the games work, and let's have the players start the match. I'm looking forward a lot to this match specifically, but I think I'm going to quickly take another card viewer because this one keeps giving us the highlight.
The highlight?
Keeps giving me the cursor.
Yeah, that's a setting in your display capture.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Pascal opening on a Forest Arboreal Glazer put a Tranquil Cove into play. Here we immediately see how quickly Pascal will get ahead on mana, simply by playing cards that allow him to put extra land drops into play next to his primary land drop for the turn. Tom, meanwhile, missing out on his third land drop, it seems like. That could be a big impact on this game. Since after all, Tom's main route to victory here, the Psychic Corrosion, does cost 3 mana. It's getting a little difficult to see when he's being played. But Pascal, Elvish Rejuvenator, hitting another land, going up to 4 lands in play already. Versus Tom's 2. Oh, and there's the third land for Tom. Tom with access to several counterspells, really getting ready to defend against potential threats that Pascal might put down. Like this Elite Guard Mage, for instance. Tom quickly realizes, no, we're not doing that. Essence Scatter to take care of that. Tom, interestingly, does play 3 Syncopates in his main deck, which can get problematic to make them be of use, considering just how much Pascal wants to be ramping. Luckily for Tom here, Pascal does not seem to be ahead on mana anymore.
Okay, and we're set. Sorry, we had some last second corrections to push through.
Okay, second Elite Guard Mage was Devious Cover-Up. Tom shuffling his spent counterspell back into the deck.
For some reason the size changed.
Yeah, it's Gatherer. Okay, so Tom untapping, seeing what he can start deploying now. Pascal is shields down with 2 threats less to care about. Just passes the turn back. Tom very strongly on the control game plan, not yet trying to deploy any of his win conditions. Which is, from Tom's perspective, a very interesting choice he needs to make, because obviously he does not want to leave Pascal the time to resolve, for example, the third Elite Guard Mage, which he does not allow by Devious Cover-Upping that one again, shuffling his first Devious Cover-Up back into the library. So if he can keep doing that, he will keep having cards in his deck and keep having counterspells to deal with the threats. But of course, this does mean that Pascal gets more time to do the plan that we talked about earlier, get his Field of that out and just make an insurmountable amount of value for Tom to beat. Tom has at this point not milled an active card. Pascal has taken 2 cards out of his deck, but there we go. Tom deploying the Psychic Corrosion with some counterspell backup. Or at least mana to counterspell, or represent a counterspell. Pascal now needs to decide what he wants to do. He's slowly but surely taking Tom down. He's down to that 16. Ooh, there's Statiova. Will that resolve? It resolves. Pascal plays a land, draws a card, gains a life. Now this obviously is a good route to victory for Pascal, because he gets to draw a lot of cards to find his final threats, but drawing cards does bring Tom closer to his victory, because Tom does not care about Pascal's life total at all. What Tom is trying to do is simply reduce that library size to 0. Let's see. Another Rejuvenated for Pascal, perhaps? No, Risen Reef. Risen Reef plus Statiova, that gets very interesting. But does not hit a land, or at least doesn't decide to play it. Attacks with both Statiova and the Rejuvenator, boom. Statiova gets taken out by the Gideon's Reproach. That is where the card does shine. And Tom follows up with a Chemister's Insight. This is exactly how Tom wants to see this go. Draw 2 cards. Mill Pascal for 4, and in his next turn be able to mill 4 more. So bam, Tom still at a comfortable life total, no big threats on the other side. Tom, I believe, has the advantage here. Ooh, and there's the Ashiok, which will definitely impact his board state. It will mill Pascal another 4 cards and exile the graveyard. Not that the graveyard is all that relevant for Pascal's deck at this point, but still, it takes care of it all. Ashiok at 4 loyalty seems wrong. Oh no, wait, it is a -1.
Yes.
Never mind, I thought it was a -2. Wow. Tom gets to mill a lot of cards with that. So Tom tries to mill again. Oh no, the Ashiok was attacked. Pascal plays Tatyova. Tom responds with Chemistry's Insight, milling Pascal an additional 4. We still have not seen the Field of the Dead hit the bin. So that is still a viable route to victory for Pascal, but he needs to deploy it soon because he is going down fast in library size.
So is this how you expected this matchup to develop?
Yes. If Pascal does not get to stick some guard mages, Tom has all the tools he needs to stay alive. I think what Pascal needs to do to win the game is either get the guard mages through to have a stream of threats that Tom can't beat before he gets the mill engine online, or hit one of his rares and have that stick around. Obviously, 3 of his rares will make the board state end up with the Field of the Dead in play, which is how Pascal, in my opinion, generates enough value that Tom can't surpass it anymore before finishing the mill kill. Tom getting to do Psychic Erosion into Ashiok, into double Chemisters, and now Search for the Golden City. Yes, Search for the Golden City is absolutely backbreaking. He does have the Ascend. He has 10 permanents, so he gets to draw 3 cards and mill Pascal for 6 more. And I think I saw the Field of the Dead in that pile, but I'm not entirely sure. Ashiok down to 1 loyalty did their job. Pascal is down to a very, very low library total. Now, obviously, life total isn't relevant for Pascal, so it's the library size we're looking for.
Yeah, if only we had a viewer to see what the library size is.
Yeah, we could manually keep track, but that could get difficult. But Tom is counting it out. 10 cards.
Yeah.
If I count correctly, that's 10 cards left in the library. With an Ashiok that can minus for 4 cards. And there's a Settle the Wreckage to save the Ashiok. Pascal decides to scoop them up, since he would be milling 10 cards next turn anyway. That's game 1 to Tom de Wael. Yes, we could try that. But then, how do you account for possible inner sleeves and difference in the thickness of sleeves? Haha.
Good idea, though. Let's have a look at the sideboard options for these players. So, for Pascal, we have the life gain elemental, negate, we have return to nature, we have
Crushing Canopies.
That's
a Crushing Canopy, the destroy a flyer or destroy an enchantment, and then Sagittar's Volley, which will deal some damage to 1 flyer and then 1 damage to all the other flyers. Now, Pascal's sideboard here is mostly anti-aggro tools and anti-flyers tools because he can't really deal with that in his main board. So he doesn't have a lot of options. I think he mostly wants to return to natures. And I believe that a viable sideboard plan for Pascal here would be just bring in the 2 return to natures, taking out 2 Tatyovas, because Tatyova, while being a 3/3, does make all your lands entering the battlefield something that progresses your opponent's win condition, and I don't think that's really what you want to be doing.
Yeah, the Crushing Canopy also gets rid of enchantments.
True, but does it for 1 mana more than Return to Nature, and Return to Nature has the benefit of being able to exile the Chemist's Insight from the graveyard.
True.
Which is also very crucial.
I'm expecting him to try and bring in both, because Creeping Corrosion
is very important.
What is going
to... Then what would you take out next to Lex and Tatyovas?
I think you take out a little bit of the ramp. The ramp actually. Because you can get away with it.
True.
If you bringing in the disenchant gives you a lot of time.
Yep.
So I think it's more valuable than some of the ramp he has.
Yeah. Now for Tom, as we pull up the view again, Tom also has mostly anti-aggro tools. So as you can see here, the full 4 Healing Rays, full 4 Revitalize. That's definitely anti-aggro. I don't really see him bringing in Healing Rays at all here. Maybe Revitalize because if he wants to get rid of some dead cards, but mostly I think Tom just wants 4 negates.
Yeah, more out of anticipating what's coming out of the sideboard than anything.
Exactly.
There's
just
nothing
the corrosions.
urgent for him to counter.
No.
I mean, countering the scape shift would be interesting, of course.
Absolutely.
But it's just anticipating what's coming out of the board.
Yeah. I think what Tom wants to do here is get rid of the 3 syncopates for 3 negates. Because syncopate can be very strong in the early game, but it will be a dead card at some point. Simply because Pascal will have far too much mana for your syncopates to really matter, I believe. So you just replace those with negates, in my opinion, and maybe cut 1 Gideon's Reproach for a negate, but that might be overkill. Yeah. But as Neil said, it is very important to anticipate the enchantment removal.
Okay, looks like our players are about ready to dive into the game again.
Alright, and we'll see just how much of our predictions come true here.
We could have just looked at their sideboarding.
Yeah, but this is more fun.
Yeah.
This way we get to proactively give a reason for certain sideboarding, which is obviously the best way for new people or people newer to sideboarding to learn exactly why you would bring in certain cards. Especially, as you said, the Tom bringing in the negates as a preemptive measure against sideboard cards from the opponent is a very important thing to not just consider that you need to bring in something to stop your opponent's main game plan, but also realize that your opponent is bringing in cards to stop your game plan and protect against that.
Yeah. In the meantime, Flochard has offered up the idea of making a program for deck count. So if you can just write a quick little app and send it on Facebook, that'd be great.
Sure, give me 3 months on a development team.
No, we need it now.
Give me a time machine. Alright, players are drawing their opening 7s. Please no scroll. No, too much. Okay. Let's see. Let's hope both players get to keep their 7 again. Yes, they do. Pascal opening up with a Woodland Stream. Tom answers in kind with a Tranquil Cove, putting him up to 21. On his side, the life total change does absolutely matter. Okay, Mayface Growth Spiral for Pascal. Draws a card, plays another land, Blossoming Sands. Would send him up to 21, but it seems like he did not.
Oh! Thank you very much for the subscription, Alod. Woo! For 7 months already. That's awesome.
I just got my notification yesterday. I've been subscribed for 17 months.
Holy shit. You're crazy.
Yes, absolutely, but you know, I don't really care. Unrisen Reef on turn 3 gets syncopated. Okay, so Tom did not take out the syncopates, and it's proving valuable to him, getting to counter and exile that Risen Reef. Pascal just deploys his land number 4 and passes the turn. Tom with the turn 3 Psychic Erosion. Okay, Tom under no pressure, totally free to resolve that Psychic Erosion. Let's see what Pascal does with this turn of no counter magic. Adventurous Impulse looks for a threat or a land. Grabs a Blossoming Sands. Okay. That'll put him up further. Ooh, I do see the Golos in his hand though. And there is the Crushing Canopy, Niels. You were definitely right. He brought it in, taking down the Psychic Erosion. That's only 3 left in the deck until Tom inevitably devious cover-ups. But still, strong play for Pascal there, getting to take down the Corrosion, buying himself a lot of time.
Yep. Yeah, that's what I meant. You can sacrifice a lot of ramp by just having...
And there it is, Golos. Runs it out, no counterspell for Tom here. Very risky play in my opinion by Pascal to play straight into the counter magic that I would expect Tom to have here, but he does get to get the Field of the Dead, and now I think Tom is fighting a very, very uphill battle. Even if he finds a removal spell for the Golos, every next land that Pascal plays, that of course, unless the exact next land has a name that he already has in play, will make him a 2/2 token, and that is going to really impact the game here.
So how many lands does he have multiples of?
4, I think.
2 islands, 5 forests, 2 evolving wilds, 2 blossoming sands, 2 thornwood falls. That's all.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hero.
And there is the first zombie token. It's a very cute zombie token as well. And there is indeed the answer from Tom. The Ixalan's Binding taking care of it, but the damage is done. Field of the Dead is live. Every single land Pascal gets will make a token. Every single card that ramps him a land will make a token. Tom needs some milling action, and he needs it right now.
Yeah. The problem we see already with the situation he's in now is he's no longer racing a fair race.
No.
Like he has some sweepers.
Yep. He has access to Settle the Wreckage and Cleansing Nova. I don't know if I brought enough zombie tokens for this, but there's a swing for 2. What Tom needs here is his removal, is his mill enchantment or an Ashiok? No, Ashiok's not good enough.
No, Ashiok doesn't do
his
anything.
mill enchantment plus a removal spell, like if he still has Gideon's Reproach, it's just a Gideon's Reproach to kill a zombie. Also interesting is that I saw that Pascal has a negate in his hand, so he definitely brought out some negates. Possibly the 3rd level of sideboarding to counter the negates that would counter his enchantment removal. Okay, so Risen Reef countered by a Essence Scatter. Pascal doesn't really care, just swings in for 8 again. Tom gently takes it, goes down to 4. Now, we know that... Oh, sorry, it's second attack for 7 because one of the creatures is not a zombie but a Rejuvenator. And Pascal here is in a very, very cozy seat since he has that negate backup just in case Tom has the sweeper to protect his board. So Tom would need a negate of his own to fight a fair fight. And even if the board gets wiped, Pascal just plays more lands, makes more tokens. This is an attack.
For lethal, yeah.
Yeah, the question is, do you attack with all? You've seen the Settle the Wreckage, but you've also seen Gideon's Reproach.
And you're holding a negate.
Yes, but you have to assume that he would also have a negate. Okay, decides to attack with all. Sanguine Sacrament from Tom. Very, very spicy rare there. Gaining him 10 life at instant speed. But, as we know, Pascal has the negate. Taking down the Sanguine Sacrament. Killing Tom on the attack. And there we go. Quick as that. Game 2 is in the books.
So, 1-1.
Do you think either of these players would change their sideboard depending on play or draw?
I don't think so. There's not much reason to, really. Especially if somebody doesn't flinch first, the other one has very little reason to react to it. Yep. Pascal brought in the negate, so he has sacrificed even more of his plan, it seems like.
Yep.
So he's looking to play a slower, more methodical game where he neutralizes threats on the board. He can disenchant stuff. He can apparently also negate stuff now. I thought bringing in 8 cards would have been too much for Pascal.
It's possible he didn't bring in a full playset of negates though.
Sure. I would love to find out how Pascal decided to sideboard. What he took out, especially.
Yep. I'll answer that. Okay, so with the player shuffling up again, I think we saw both sides of what this matchup can do. Game 1, Tom was firing on all cylinders, having the exact answer he needed every time, and Psychic Corrosion plus Ashiok and a lot of card draw to go with it, to really just close the books. Game 2, Pascal just got to resolve a Golos, got to grab the Field of Death, and got to go ham with the zombie tokens. Let's see which direction Game 3 goes in.
Yeah, in the meantime, I'm going to try
switch over back to Skyfall
again. But if it keeps giving us the drop-down menu...
The drop-down menu?
Yeah, whenever you search, it covers up the card, actually.
Yeah.
Can we...
No, you're not going to be able to take that off.
Is there another site?
Not that I know of. I just always use Cryfall. Maybe look up MTG Card Hunter.
Gather, Scryfall. MTG Vault. No. What is the one you said?
Card Hunter. I think MTG Card Hunter. I think that was something at some point, but I don't know if it is. No. This is a game. MTG Card Hunter, because someone once launched that because Hunter Gatherer is a funny joke. Go back up.
MTG Hunter.
Yeah, that one. Maybe this is better, but I doubt it because it doesn't seem to immediately show the picture. In the meantime, we have both players on 2 lands. Pascal seems to have missed the life gain trigger. Tom plays the Evolving Wilds, but no further action.
No.
No, see, the issue with your Scryfall is that it's your browser that remembers it. It should be a browser setting, but it's not something we're going to be able to turn off right now. In the meantime, Pascal, 3rd tap land, Tom fetches up his 2nd white source. Now, obviously, he could just have a 2nd blue in hand, or he just wants to make sure that he has double white for his board wipes. Very interesting for sure, and we'll see how that develops further. So we're at the end of Pascal's 3rd turn, about to pass back to Tom.
Yeah, we might expect Tom to play different now that he knows that there's negates, especially in the early game. Maybe he'll be less inclined to just slam something crucial on turn 3, and make sure he has counter mana up as well.
Absolutely true. Yeah, and one sort of downside to the milling win condition, that's not a tactical downside, it's an emotional downside, is that you could just have your opponent empty-handed, mill some cards, then have them top deck, for example, the Field of Death that beats you. And it doesn't matter, tactically you will still make the right play, but emotionally that would just feel really bad.
Yep.
I know I am personally very weak to those kind of losses.
You're such an emotional boy.
Which is also the reason I almost never play mono red on events that actually matter, because of the feel bads when you just draw nothing. Anyway, Pascal has resolved the growth spiral, so back at land parity. If he has a follow-up land to play, he'll be ahead on mana. Risen Reef might get him that. Does it resolve? Risen Reef a lot less scary in this deck than in most decks where it's played, because there are no other elementals. Tom fully tapping out for Syncopate. Does Pascal have a follow-up? Something that he wants to resolve here? Nope, just a Jungle Hollow, gaining a life, and passing the turn back to Tom, keeping up, crucially, mana for a potential negate.
Yeah, so Syncopate still in the deck.
There's a Psychic Corrosion. There is Return to Nature, which gets negated. So Pascal's removal for the mill enchantment did not work, but he does have a turn to play anything he wants with 6 mana. Can he make full use of that is the question. Starts off with 3 mana for either Rejuvenator or Risen Reef, one would expect. Or maybe, hopefully for Pascal, the Crushing Canopy. It is the Crushing Canopy! The 2nd enchantment removal taking care of the Psychic Corrosion. But of course, Tom has all the time in the world to find a new one. Pascal is putting on no pressure.
And the other way around at this point. I mean, Pascal is sitting easy. Both players are pretty comfortable in this state. I do think that Tom has more ways to break out of this parity and get advantage of it. But
Very
it's
true.
interesting for sure.
Absolutely true. But the fact is that Pascal has 3 cards that immediately get him a huge lead in Golos, Field of Death, and Escape Shift. Well, Escape Shift maybe not, because it doesn't necessarily resolve. And with Elvish Rejuvenator has a great way of going to find them. So this could be very interesting. Okay, Pascal picked up a negate. There's the Rejuvenator I just mentioned. Let's see if it resolves. It does. Pascal gets to see 5 cards and put a land into play. Does not get to see the Field of the Dead. So just, is it Guildgate? Ramping him up more for when he inevitably wants to cast a big threat or multi-spell in a turn.
We haven't seen Pascal's 0-3s, the grazing.
Grazer, yeah, game 1.
Yeah.
Game
Not
1
game
goes.
2 or 3.
Oh yeah, no, very true. Oh, maybe those went out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they're not impactful enough.
Yeah.
Early game. I could see that.
They're just tempo.
Yeah. I could absolutely see that. Okay, and first damage of the game, Tom goes down to 19 life.
Woo!
Adventurous Impulse for Pascal. Does not find him Field of the Dead. Finds him 3 lands, but which one does he pick?
And we have another follower. Welcome, Hamyel Cream. That's the best I can do there. Oh yeah, grab an oar and join the adventure. I have to say it, I'm sorry.
I know, it's fine. And it's another attack for 1, down to 18.
They pushed the life total out the screen again.
Yep. I'm sure someone will notice and tell them, or we can fix it.
Somebody's already on the way.
Yeah.
Another growth spiral.
Yes, Summerby, indeed. Field of the Dead is a new card. If you would pull that up, Niels? Maybe after the growth spiral. It's a growth spiral, has resolved, put land into play. And there's a Risen Reef looking for another land. Nope, gets essence scattered. So Field of the Dead, as you can see, is a land that, as long as you have it and 6 other names of lands, not just lands, but names of lands, any land entering the battlefield will be bringing a 2/2 zombie along for the fun. And there's a Blessed Light taking care of the 1/1 Elvish Rejuvenator.
Yeah, Field of the Dead is the fixed Valakut.
Yes, basically. Rather than shooting 2 damage, it just provides a 2/2 zombie. But yeah, that Blessed Light was overkill. And here's another Rejuvenator. Ooh.
They're scary. Oh.
That is not a Field of the Dead.
No, that was the escape shift.
And a Crisis. Oof. There was a Crisis in there and Pascal chose not to pick it up, maybe scared of the card draw.
It's Rejuvenator. Lands only, boy.
Oh yeah, no, it's not Adventurous Impulse. Right! So he just had to send 2 of his rares down to the bottom. This could get painful. Oh, Circuitous Route allows him to pick up 2 lands and shuffle those rares back to a random position.
From the chat, wouldn't you rather scatter Rejuvenator than Risen Reef?
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
I think if you had the choice, I definitely would prefer the Rejuvenator, since, you know, it is very clear that Pascal's main route to victory at this point will be that Field of the Dead. Because sure, Tom doesn't have any active mill action, but Pascal has thinned his deck considerably of lands, and thus is down to a relatively more low life library size. And there is a Sanguine Sacrament again. This time, oh, and it's for 5 again, so Tom gaining 10 life, shuffling this, oh no, putting it on the bottom of his library, and he had the blue backup to represent the negate. Not that I think that Pascal would want to fight over that. I don't think he can afford to try and fight over.
So why is he shuffling?
Good question. I should probably go and...
Yes.
Yeah.
We're just having to make sure that that Sanguine Sacrament ends up in the correct position. As Pascal is still digging for some action, his deck has been dodging the good cards. We're just making sure. Yeah, we're putting the Sanguine Sacrament on the bottom, and then we'll go down. Well, at this point, Tom does not know the deck list. They'll only see the decks after match 1, so they're going in blind. Though by now, Pascal has shown enough of his deck. I'm also afraid that Pascal will get to the point where he has too many lands in play.
Okay, that situation is fixed. Wow, there's another rare. Patient Rebuilding for Tom. If he gets a Psychic Corrosion next to that, that will be huge. Patient Rebuilding will mill his opponent for 3 every upkeep, and every land that gets milled will not do anything because Pascal is destroying it.
So we went Patient Rebuilding, negate, and then
Crushing Canopy. Yep. Wow. Essence Scatter takes care of another Risen Reef. And Tom gets to untap. Okay, so...
Aren't we getting to the point where Pascal's Field of the Dead won't do anything anymore?
Yeah, that's definitely becoming a realistic threat. And he's already used 2 of his negates. So protecting a big Hydroid Crisis might also be an issue. It is looking less and less good. I also don't really agree with the playing of every land you find for exactly that reason. Especially those from the hand anyway.
That's not a lot of cards.
No.
Pascal is self-milling here.
Yeah, absolutely, which is, as I said earlier in the game, was definitely a relevant point for the board stall, for the stalemate. It's a weird to use the term board stall when the board is empty, but... Secrets of the Golden City.
Isn't it Search for the Golden City?
Secrets of the Golden City. It's definitely Secrets. I forgot the name last time, but now it just popped into my mind. And there is the Psychic Corrosion of the Golden City. There's a lot of cards that say Secret in Magic in my mind. But there's the Psychic Corrosion. Let's see, does it resolve? Did it resolve? It did. Pascal attacking with Rejuvenator, knocking Tom down to 17. I don't think Pascal has 17 turns left. Scape Shift. Tom doesn't seem to have any answers.
But how many zombies can he still make? Like 5? Maybe?
Something like that. And Tom does have the board wipe. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. If Pascal had dedicated one slot to Looming Shaman to shuffle the lands back in, did he sacrifice the Scape Shift? Would not have been a correct deck building choice, but would have helped here.
Yeah, so he's trying to figure out how many he can still
make, yeah, and how many he should make, because he knows Tom has board wipes. Unless he has solid protection against those, he really needs to have lands left after the Scape Shift to still be able to make some tokens. Wow, 7 lands.
He still has 7 different lands?
He doesn't need 7 different lands. He has enough different names in play still.
Sure, but the rest doesn't do anything. Does it?
Oh, yeah, you only just need to have 7 different lands. It can be the same name, that doesn't matter. So he's just grabbing up. I mean, he does play a total of 28 lands in the deck, but...
Or if you feel that another land, if you control 7 or more.
Yep.
In my head, you needed to keep adding.
Oh, no.
Lands.
As long as you have the 7 different names, it works. And there we go. Field of Dead, and
finds 5
lands in total. Yeah, 5 lands in total. Let's see if there are 5 zombie tokens. Oh yeah, I brought enough. 5 zombie tokens in play.
So that's a 2-turn clock now.
That's a 2-turn clock. That is enough, assuming he can protect his board state. Mill 2. And has about 12-ish cards left, I think. There's the Cleansing Nova. And Pascal does not have the answer. Is there a way out for him at this point? If he has another removal spell for the Psychic Corrosion, then he might have enough time. Because he does have at least 1 land extra in hand. Okay. 3, 4, 5. I cannot imagine you playing Tatiova before your land at this point, right? You do not want to draw more cards. Or do you, if you still have an enchantment removal? Maybe that is your only out to find that still.
Well, and then attack 6 times?
Evolving? Well, no, because you make tokens of the evolving of the field of it. The plan is to make a board state that again will be a 2-turn clock, or a 3-turn clock if necessary. But you need to get rid of the Psychic Corrosion.
Yeah.
That was a Growth Spiral. That's not going to do it. Passes the turn. Oof, Blessed Light. Trying to get rid of the Tatiova. Skull decides, alright, let's fetch up another basic. Draw another card. Make another zombie too. This is now a 3-turn clock.
Yeah,
so,
but Tom is already holding 2 Gideon's Approaches.
Ooh, those stayed in then. This is going to get rough for Pascal.
Honestly, I don't think Pascal can win anymore.
No, I think it's definitely very... Oh, and that was the final enchantment removal going to the bin. And there's an Ashiok to close the game out. Does Pascal have an answer? Growth Spiral looks for a negate. puts a land into play, makes a zombie. Should probably be tapped, but it doesn't really matter at this point, since Pascal needs to mill 4 more, exile the graveyard, with 5 cards left in the deck.
It's not a lot of cards.
No, he does have 6 power on the board, 3 attacks, but he needs to kill the Ashiok, so that doesn't work. He has no more enchantment removal, but he has a big Hybrid Crisis, but he can't play it because it would mill himself.
Yep. I'm afraid this is a wrap. I wonder how Tom feels right now, because he was genuinely disappointed that he had to start off against Pascal.
Yeah. Fearing the round 1 knockouts to the Platinum Pro. And I'm going to be real, I did definitely expect Pascal was going to win, not necessarily on skill, but simply on the fact that I thought Tom's deck would not be able to put enough in the way of the ramp list. But it definitely did, and there is Gideon's Approach 1, Gideon's Approach 2, taking out 2 zombies, Gideon's Approach, Seal Away to take down the 3rd zombie, and that will do it. Pascal.
Just showing he has all the tools now.
Yeah, Pascal with 4 cards left, knows the Ashiok needs to die, needs to counter 2 of the removal spells, but can't. Counters the Seal Away. Ashiok does not die. Golos. Too little, too late. Golos will go and grab a land. Nope, there's no lands left. Activates Golos to cast 2 cards. 3 cards, top 3 of his deck. Gets to cast those. There's the Return to Nature. There was still one left. Taking out Psychic Corrosion. Tatyova, Adventurous Impulse. Go get his final card and loses the game.
Handshake. There we go.
Wow, what a 3rd game.
Tom de Wael goes to the 2nd round here against Pascal Vieren. Now, for those of you that are wondering about the deck, Pascal was the single most handicapped player coming into this tournament, getting last pick decks, because people weren't allowed to take different decks. There was a hidden order in which they could select a deck. If they chose something that was already chosen, then they would have to take something else. That's one thing. That meant Pascal played his 3rd choice of deck. Another thing is, as we mentioned already, Pascal's a Platinum Pro. He plays a lot of Magic, but he isn't super active in the Gentry community. No. So most likely he spent 3 days thinking about the format and developing this deck. Compared to Tom de Wael, who probably does 3 hours per day for the last 2.5 years or so. But then again, Tom didn't take what he thinks is one of the best decks either. This is very much a pet deck for Tom.
Yep.
But it just illustrates that your pet deck in Gentry, if you play it well, if you know the meta game and you know how to address and to attack it, you are going to break some...
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely right now, like the meta right now, the cards in the standard card pool right now allow you to make any of a wide array of decks. Most archetypes I can imagine that exist that are supported will be good, just because the card quality is so even across the board and high across the board that any deck piloted strongly can just sweep tournaments in Gentry at least.
Yep, I totally agree.
Alright, I will...
we have space. Pascal here. Let's have a talk. Switch camera positions. Hey. Pascal, welcome to the booth. So first of all, welcome and thank you very much for playing in the Gentry Invitational. We mentioned already that this choice of deck was your 3rd choice.
Yeah.
It's a port from what's very interesting in Standard right now. What were your other 2 choices? Do you remember?
Blue-black control, which had the reanimator element, and blue-red drakes, which was just the regulars.
Yeah. Very big. Blue-red drakes, a staple pretty much in Gentry at the moment, and has been for I think a year and a half
probably.
now. So you definitely came in slightly handicapped by trying the deck that you went for. I was super enthusiastic about it.
Yeah,
but
like the deck. I think it's fine, but
yeah. Is there something you would change after having played one
Yeah.
match now with it?
Probably change Risen Reef for something more impactful.
The chat agreed that the Risen Reef was probably just a worse rejuvenator most
for
of the
sure.
time.
Yeah,
And it being an uncommon and the stress that we have.
Yeah, I had like the 1/2 elemental in sideboard, like against aggro decks I thought. Then the Risen Reef gets slightly better, but probably not worth it.
Anything you think you'd put in there?
I need to check. Like probably some kind of interaction, maybe something like Ixalan's Binding, which I think is a good card in Gentry.
It definitely is. Because so many decks, they rely more on a few playset of really good uncommons than anything else in the deck. Yeah.
Maybe change the Hydrate Crisis, I don't know. It's just obviously bad now. Well, it would have been good if I drew it.
Yeah, we saw the one Rejuvenator that had both the Hydroid Crisis and your Scapeshift. Yeah, that was physically painful to watch. So I hope you still had a good time exploring the format and building a deck. Will you be there at the Gentry Open in 3 weeks?
I won't be. I think I already have plans set for myself.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest. I think lunch will be ready by now.
Perfect.
So you can get something to eat.
Good. Thanks.